Ecuador. Its geology, history, and the unique characteristics that nature has bestowed on it. Ecuador is located on the northwest corner of South America. The name Ecuador means midway point or equator in Spanish. The equator runs through its capital. According to the time zone map, Ecuador is in the UTC-5 hour time zone or on the New York time. However, it operates on UTC-6 hour time zone or the Texas time. The reason for this may be that one of its important districts, the Galapagos Islands, lies 600 miles to its west and it is at the UTC-6 time zone or the Texas time zone. The Galapagos Islands is world famous because Charles Darwin developed the theory of evolution based on the fauna on the Galapagos Island. Ecuador shares the northern boundary with Colombia and its southern and eastern boundaries with Peru. Its western boundary is the Pacific Ocean. The capital of Ecuador is Quito, which is located 9,350 feet above sea level and is the highest official capital city in the world. The equator runs 15 miles north of the center of Quito. There is evidence that human beings lived in Ecuador since 9000 BC. It was not a single country at that time, but was inhabited by several tribes, governed by tribal chiefs. It was only in 1463 that the Inca kingdom, based in Cuzco, Peru, brought the tribes together into one country. The Spaniards took over the country in 1530s and named it Ecuador. Ecuador became independent from Spain in 1830. Its current political system is similar to that of the USA and has an elected president. Ecuador is only 176,000 square miles in size compared to 269,000 square miles of Texas. However, the Ecuador population is 12.9 million compared to 26.4 million of Texas. We see that there are more Texans per square mile than Ecuadorians in Ecuador. The 4,300 mile long Andes mountain range is the longest in the world. It can be stretched from Chicago to Moscow. Its average width is only about 200 miles. This sharp mountain range was formed millions of years ago as the result of the plate tectonic process caused by the oceanic Nazca plate sliding beneath the South American plate. The Andes range contains about 50 volcanoes that rise over 20,000 feet above sea level. The scale on the Ecuador map goes down to minus 4,000 meters or minus 13,000 feet and up to plus 5,000 meters or 16,250 feet. This difference in height of about 29,250 feet from the bottom of the ocean to the top of the mountain range takes place within a horizontal distance of a few hundred miles. In contrast to this, other mountain ranges in the world, like the Rockies, the Alps, and the Himalayas, are far away from the ocean, as they were formed by two land masses sliding against each other. There are 14 dormant volcanoes in Ecuador that are snow-covered throughout the year, though they are almost on the equator. There are also 3 lakes at elevations ranging from 11,000 to 14,000 feet. The unnamed volcano near the bottom of the picture is Chimborazo, the highest volcano in Ecuador. It is 20,561 feet above sea level, and its top is the furthest point from the center of the earth. In contrast to this, though Mount Everest is 29,029 feet above sea level, its top is the 5th furthest point from the center of the earth. There are 2 reasons for this apparent discrepancy. The first reason is that the height of the mountains are measured from the sea level at its location. The second reason is that the earth bulged in its middle or along the equator when it was being formed due to its spin on the north-south axis. The equatorial diameter of the earth is larger by about 13.6 miles than the meridional diameter, or the diameter through the North Pole and the South Pole. From this we can estimate that the radius of 28 degrees where Mount Everest is located to be about 2.2 miles or 11,356 feet less than the radius at the equator. Mount Everest therefore starts from sea level 11,356 feet below the sea level at the equator. Then the top of Mount Everest is 20,029 minus 11,356 or 17,673 feet above the sea level at the equator. Volcano Chimborazo is 20,561 feet above the level of the sea at its location near the equator. Here are 2 views of Lake Cotacachi at 4,939 meters or 16,200 feet. At one moment the sun shines brightly, and the next moment it's covered by clouds. It has 2 distinct humps in the middle of it, making it unique and identifiable. This is 18,714 feet high volcano Antisana, covered in snow in July. Early morning, one has to wait till the clouds pass to take a clear picture. Most of the topography in between the volcanoes and the lakes is covered with cultivated land dotted with white farmhouses. The countryside is crisscrossed with winding roads through hills and valleys connecting the cities scattered all over. Low-hanging cumulus clouds add to the beauty of the countryside. The region west of the mountains has been deforested for cattle ranching and agriculture. 8 million tons of bananas consumed in the world comes from this region. Rice, which is the staple diet of Ecuadorians, is also grown in the western region that slopes down to the Pacific Ocean. Unlike in Texas, rice grows in fields covered in water. Harvesting is done only in the dry season. The eastern slopes of the Andes range at 17,000 feet above sea level is the source of the Amazon River. The Amazon flows 4,000 miles across Peru and Brazil from the Andes down to the Atlantic Ocean. It discharges more than 7 million cubic feet of water per second. This is larger than the total discharge of the other 7 largest rivers on earth. The eastern slopes of the Andes is rich in crude oil. The oil fields are worked both by the state as well as by the private enterprise. The crude oil pipelines, shown in purple, run across the country, connecting the oil fields in the east to the maritime terminal and the 4 refineries on the Pacific coast. These refineries now refine about 176,000 barrels per day, and the balance 674,000 barrels per day is exported, mostly to China. Ecuador is negotiating with China for a $2 billion loan to finance another refinery to double the output. This map shows the locations we visited. They are marked in blue. Quito, the capital, is on the center of the map. Starting from the left, the first location is Restaurante Rio Blanco. Next comes San Jorge Lodge, Milipe, Zapotamia Lodge, Bella Vista Lodge, Tapalacta Hot Springs, Antisana Volcano, Guango Lodge, and last San Isidro Lodge on the right end. This is a view of the clouds over the mountains and the rain gear we had to wear almost all the time. Moving a 20-pound camera with a 150mm lens at 13,750 feet takes one breath away. On the way from Quito to the eastern slopes of the Andes, we had to cross the Andes range from east to west over the Tapalacta Pass. Right at the highest point, at 15,000 feet elevation, is St. Mary's Chapel, where all travelers traditionally stop, say a prayer for safety of the journey, and contributes a thank offering. Who collects a thank offering at the end of the day remains a question that we could not answer. Driving on the main roads was always very pleasant. It was either over a mountain or through a valley that follows a river. The scenery was breathtaking. We then came across the 3 waterfalls called the 3 Marys. By the time we descended down to the valley following the Tapalacta River, we were hungry. We soon came across a police checkpoint in the small town of Baeza. As all the trucks, road buses and most of the tour buses had to stop at this police checkpoint, this town had become a wayside refreshment center. So we also stopped to grab some lunch. The aroma of organic chicken pieces being grilled on an open fire tempted us to visit the restaurant nearby. The organic country chicken pieces not only satisfied the hunger but also proved to be delicious. The grill would not have passed the US OSHA standards. It was made out of a half-cut oil barrel with firewood fed through a hole in the bottom and a metal grill on the top. The CEO and CFO of the restaurant was more than pleased when her clientele paid for the chicken in American dollars. The most sophisticated restaurant next door was just opening for the day. Fuel conservation was achieved by using only 2 or 3 sticks of firewood at a time. Radiant and convection heat loss was prevented by the clay cladding around the heat source. Smoke-free environment was achieved by confining the combustion to a closed space and by leading the smoke up through a chimney. The circular opening at the top of the cooking range was designed to fit the pot where the rice or yuca yams were cooked. The cooking range design was much closer to the US EPA and OSHA standards. Almost next to the sophisticated restaurant, there was a statue of 2 women carrying home a large jug of water carved simply out of a tree trunk. How does the 2 women by the Baeza artist compare with the Pieta by Michelangelo in marble? They could not afford to have clothes dryers. The only alternative was to dry their washed clothes in the upstairs balcony to avoid the constant rain. After a 2.5 hours arduous journey on the road, we note that we have to cover only 3 kilometers on the bumpy dirt road to the Isidoro Lodge. We note that there are 2 more lodges down the same road. The 2 rooms allocated to us is surrounded by cloud forest. The 2 queen-size beds looked inviting after the tiring journey. Surprise! There was hot water off the bathroom faucet and the shower. We are delighted to see the first bird, the green Inca jay, perched on a branch just outside our room. We go for a walk down the first trail through the cloud forest. The female long-tailed sliff sits on a branch just round the corner. The endemic agouti rodent is picking up food with her arms and eating like a human being. A yellow-backed tanager sits on the overhead electric cable. On the sugar syrup feeder, we find 2 hummingbirds named green-crowned wood nymph. Once again, on the overhead electric cable is a green honey creeper. This bird that does not fly very much is called a white-bellied antpitta. It is breakfast time for the antpitta. It picks up worms from the ground for his breakfast. We go for a walk along the unpaved road. Our guide sees a bird close to a farmhouse. He simply walks us through without even asking the owner for permission. The farmer would have laid out the trout for sale on the shelf under the metal cover. At last, the guide shows us the laughing gull resting on the ground just for us to take a photograph. How do you know that the double-toothed kite perched on a branch is a female juvenile? The white streaks on the long tail and the underbelly color shows its identity. The first of the tanager family we see is the masked crimson tanager. The rufous-crested tanager sits on a twig of a small tree. It is raining hard, but the roadside hawk sits on a tree trunk till the rain ceases. We take an unpaved road to get to the next birding lodge. When we hit the main highway, it is under construction. Soon we see the cross-country oil pipeline running along the highway. The guide gets on the oil pipeline because he had spotted a bird. That was the scarlet tanager, high up on a tree against a cloud. Ecuadorian beetles can cover half of your palm. Finally, we arrive at the Guango Lodge in the cloud forest. Tired and hungry, we sat for the excellent 4-course dinner. The green-crowned wood nymph that we saw at the San Isidro Lodge is the first hummingbird we saw. We are then rewarded by the white-breasted Inca that flap their wings 60 times a second. The panoramic view shows the oil pipeline taking a shortcut over the steep terrain. Welcome to Termas de Papayacta, the hot water springs. Everyone enjoys the hot water spa and dries off in the sun. The Termas Gardens was beautifully decorated with vegetation. The Termas is surrounded by mountains. When you stay overnight, you can enjoy the hot water pool just outside your door. We come across the green-crowned wood nymph again. The Papayacta Hotel has 32 rooms with private hot water pools. The Sunfall restaurant had a tempting menu. No formalities. You sit for lunch in your swimsuits. Farm-bred tilapia with freshwater shrimp served for lunch was delicious. The Antisana Ecological Reserve is on the edge of the Antisana volcano. Mirador Isco is a tempting viewpoint for the nests of condor, the 10-foot wingspan bird, the largest bird in the world. This is 3,922 meters to the top of the hut. The carunculated caracara does not fly more than a few feet off the ground. The Andean deer. The black-winged ground dove is also found mostly on the ground. The farmer's house is located at 12,500 feet elevation. His cultivation is fenced off in the back of the house and the horses are grazing. We stopped for a sheep's crossing, not a pedestrian crossing. The only flower we saw at this 12,500 foot elevation. Further down the road, we came across the flower sanguinea. It is used by Ecuadorian thieves to hallucinate their victims. At traffic lights, vendors walk between traffic lanes to sell their products. Organic fruits and vegetables by the side of the road. Instant service. Fresh mangoes we share. Shopping for trinkets. Flowers are exported. Hacienda is a plantation owner's mansion. A band invites us for lunch. Fresh flowers from the garden. Vintage chandeliers are still functioning. The garden is full of orange trees and lemon trees. Our friend, the green-crowned wood nymph. The waitress was in traditional costume. Traditional artifacts adorned the dining area. The purple bougainvillea refreshed us after lunch. As we approach Quito over the mountain, we see the houses on the hillside protected by a statue of Saint Mary. San Francisco Church is one of the 17 churches in Quito. It was built over the palace of the Inca king Huayna Capac. The inside of it is lined with gold. The Equator episode. Louis Gaudini was a French astronomer and mathematics professor who calculated the diameter of the Earth at the equator and through the poles. In 1736, he went to Ecuador to mark the equator and to verify his calculation, and the Equator Monument was erected in his honor. What is Cuellar asados? In South America, 65 million cuellars are consumed every year. We selected this guinea pig for our lunch. In half an hour, the grilled guinea pig was on our table. It was accompanied by a soup, vegetables, avocado, and pasta. Bella Vista was covered in a thick rain cloud. The beautiful plate-billed mountain toucan sat on a nearby fruit tree. The Englishman Richard Parsons founded Bella Vista in 1991. It was on August 15, 2013 that the unique mammal Olinguito was discovered in Bella Vista. We were lucky to see an owl seated on the rooftop. The White River Viewpoint is a hostel as well as a restaurant. The White River flows from east to west along the Mindo Valley. One of the guest rooms has a beautiful view of the west side of the Mindo Valley. We sat for lunch at the restaurant and watched birds feeding at the bird feeder. Along another dirt road, we arrive at the Sachatamia Lodge. That is a hotel, restaurant, and has an indoor pool. A few miles away is San George Eco Lodge. San George was beautifully furnished. the cock of the rock. Early morning they gather in a lake and dance till a female comes along and offers herself. Very soon the love affair is over.